Welcome to Muslim Billionaires episode 17. And you guys know the deal. Subscribe, follow, whoever wants to interact. You know my TikTok, Instagram, Muslim Billionaires. So there's something that I always start with these podcast episodes with something that I thought of. But this time I'm going to start with something that I'm going through personally. And for most of us, that's going through it in the process of this cliche saying of believing in yourself. I think there's a door that's in between being the better version of yourself and the version that you are in currently. And that door, it's not really talked about, but it's also not really emphasized, where the door is closed and it's titled, "Wait Your Turn." And how effective is it in our development of whatever you're trying to strive through or strive towards? So when I'm thinking about it, of waiting your turn, what does that technically mean, right? Well, it means a few things, right? One, it means obviously wait your turn. Like even if you're putting the utmost effort, even if you're working so hard, even if you're outworking this person that's right beside, even if you're more talented, you have more skills and you put so many years into it, there is the door that's right in front of you of seeing that other version of yourself down the line. And that door is just wait your turn. Now, when you look to your right and you look to your left, people are just going through that door with far less time that they put in, far less talent, and far less skills. So what does that mean for you? What does wait your turn mean for you? Well, I'll tell you how it affects everybody, right, in this process of waiting your turn. What's hard, first and foremost, again, I've talked about this, but it's in our nature to compare ourselves to other people. It's really in our nature, to look at somebody's success and think that, why can't I do it? And even if you try to attempt it, you start to give up because you've already seen this person establish that success with far less time and maybe a lot more talent and recognition for what they're doing. And how does that affect you in turn, right? Well, what's the worst part of waiting your turn is when you see other people winning and you're still at that door knocking at it, right? And that's the worst part. This is when people actually give up. This is the point where people give up. When it's time to wait your turn. The conversation you're having with yourself, I've done everything. I've done every single thing that I'm supposed to do. I've went through YouTube tutorials. I've read all these books. I've even went through mentorship. I've had these conversations. I wrote down notes. I put action into it, and I'm still at the same place. What is going on? This is the conversation where, okay, what makes and breaks you, right? And that conversation, usually 99.9% is when people give up. I put in all this effort, but I'm not getting anything in reception. I'm not receiving anything out of that. I'm not getting a good return from my efforts. Why am I still waiting my turn? I don't get it. Why am I still waiting my turn if I'm looking at everybody else and they're winning? These are conversations with having that conversation with yourself, and you're having that struggle to understand the meaning of putting the effort and not having that same outcome. So what is the answer to that? I'll be honest with you, I don't know. I'll put my hands up and say I have no clue what the answer to that is, because it's not my answer to look for. That's in God's hands. People call it luck. I call it it's in God's hands. From an Islamic perspective, you have to have patience. The outcome has nothing to do with us. When we take the responsibility of the outcomes, when we truly start to give up. But who invites you, gives you those thoughts of thinking that you can control the outcome? It's only the devil's tricks. Especially if you're doing something good for the purpose of your community. If it's for Islamic purposes, when you're trying to make a difference in your community, who's whispering in your ear saying, this is too much, you're putting way too much effort, what is this? What is the return that you're getting from, right? From a spiritual sense, the return that you're getting from is good deeds and the pleasure of your Creator. That is the utmost biggest return. When everybody's not looking, God is looking. That's the return of it. Now, people will look at it as like, okay, but I'm still not getting a Mercedes. I'm still not getting a big house. I'm still not getting the notoriety of getting the recognition of my efforts, you know? I'm not getting people to tell me how cool I am or whatever. But who are you doing it for? That's the question you need to ask it for. What are you doing it for and who are you doing it for? See, a lot of people don't like to ask questions. They just like getting answers. They see something, they follow. That's it. They see people with great cars and great things, and they just follow without asking any questions as to how they got there, what they're doing, what's the behind the scenes, what's the story, what's the research. Let me just do it, right? This is more often within the westernized society where we just continue to follow a trend that doesn't even make sense, but because everybody's doing it, everybody's getting money off of it, and that's the standard to our living, that's exactly what we're going to continue to fight for, right? Which is a terrible way of living. What are you doing it for? Right? So then that regresses back to waiting your turn. Why do people give up and then become depressed and then think they have no worth in this world? Because your worth was just within this world. And it doesn't make sense, right? Your answers are way more important than asking questions, which obviously, in turn, doesn't make sense for you to be patient. Let me tell you from an Islamic perspective, for me, how I see it. Be patient is a virtue. It's an amazing ability that God gave us, every single one of us, right? And the best part of being patient is leaving it in God's hands and saying, Ya Allah, please guide me. That's the beauty of striving to get somewhere, to be in a position where you need to get to without thinking, I don't get it. Why is everybody getting into those doors? You know what's the beauty of waiting your turn? Is helping people go through the same doors that are being opened from God. You don't think God is preparing you for something greater than you can ever imagine? The more you wait, the more you're being prepared for something bigger than you can even imagine, right? And a lot of us don't even think about it that way. We just think about the outcome of how we think, where our mind is, where we imagine where we're at. Why do you control the timing? Who told you to control the time? Who told you to start fighting for taking responsibility of things that have the traits of only God and a higher entity controls? Who told you that? Who told you can take over a position that's not even supposed to be in your position? Who told you to start imagining things that you think you could control? What are we starting to merge ourselves into, right? Is thinking that we can control that and then being depressed at knowing that we can't. That is really truly the outcome. So waiting your turn is the beneficial and the beauty of your process. Again, remember I told you one of the early podcast episodes I was mentioning, the beauty of your success is the story that's being told, right? And documenting your story is the beauty of it, and leveraging it and making sure everybody knows what that story looks like. That's what it is, right? Whether it's audio, whether it's video, whether it's something, as long as it's not compromising your Islamic values, it's your mindset that doesn't change anything, right? Because you know what your mindset looked like when nobody was watching. And when people started watching, people thought, what are you doing? I'm questioning it. You know, you look like a weirdo for even doing what you're doing. That doesn't even make sense. Why does it not make sense for those people? It's because they haven't seen the vision that you put yourself in. You've put in years imagining yourself to be in a certain position. Waiting your turn is the beauty of what it is. Because you know, if God has guided you to the prayer of that certain thing that you're praying for, then what makes you think God is not desiring? It's not trying to fulfill your desire too. It's just not your time. And the time you're asking for could be the most treacherous time for you because you may be unprepared for something that you're asking for. That's okay. Waiting your turn, again, there's beauty in it. But it's only beautiful when you know behind that closed door is God controlling that. It's not luck. It's not a person opening that door. It's that door that just opens because God has told you this is your time. So when do you start preparing yourself to that point, right? When do you start doing it? And then, not to mention, behind that door, there's things that you couldn't even imagine about yourself in real time. In times that you're shaking your head like, how did this all happen? How is this all flowing together? How does this all making sense? And the people that look at you and say you're a weirdo start becoming your biggest supporters. Right? We're at your turn, which is okay. A lot of us, we don't want to fight against patience. Or a lot of us fight against patience. Right? We fight for instant answers. Instant gratification is what's taking apart our society. Right? Everything is instant. We watch videos instantly. We get information instantly. We communicate with one another instantly. That's even across the world. Instant. But what's the problem with that? It's the fact that even within your life, you want everything instantly. Right? Back then, people used to value time. Now, time doesn't even make sense. You can think about it. Even we have short attention spans. We can't even sit through a lecture. We can only sit through clips of that lecture because we have short attention spans. We don't value time anymore. We don't value patience. So imagine something that you're working on so much that the time that you're putting into is, you're not even valuing that. You're not even valuing the process that's going through that. So what gratitude do you even have when you're fighting against that and God is even giving you the ability to even think of it? You know, something that we completely underrate is the ability or the thought that God has gifted. Do you think you just came up with that thought? That thought of, let me build this company, let me build this business, let me go through that process. Who gave you that thought? Let me ask you that. Yes, you have the choices, but who gave you the permission to even think that way? And to come with that, to come with that, especially if it was, it's for great purposes. Who put you in a position to even think that way? So in the process of going through that, how you don't have the gratitude of waiting your turn, knowing that the thought came from God and helped you with this and guiding you through that process? How do you not have gratitude with that? Everything that we do comes from the permission of Allah. So how do we start thinking about, we have to wait our turn, so I should just give up? My brother or sister, why do you feel like you have to go through to not be grateful enough to even go through the process of even knocking on the door? How are you not grateful of that? Think about how many people don't even have the vision of what you're thinking about. People calling you a weirdo. Are you not grateful for knowing that what you're doing is bigger than the program of what everybody's doing? Everybody's following an instant answer. You're asking questions to ask to get instant answers. Different. You're living differently. You're thinking differently. So be grateful for that. I always was talking to somebody about this. A lot of people talk about, this is the top 1% of earners, right? Less than 1% of earners of being billionaires and millionaires. Okay, cool. But let's talk about the top 1% of thinkers. People that actually think outside the box. It doesn't want to follow the traditional path of just doing everything by the rules and regulations of someone. God knows where this whole information came from, but it's systematically in place for you to be enslaved to that without even thinking outside of it, because you're ashamed that 99.9% of people are doing it. So you'll feel ashamed if you ever thought outside of what the generic way of living is, right? So when you think about all of that, you start to ask yourself, am I the weirdo, or is it the fact that the people that are just following something that's traditional is not? Again, you have to go through that process of going through the traditional way of living, but not getting information and using the same system to get out of it is detrimental to your livelihood. What are you going to tell your children? Right? What are you going to tell your children? How are you going to teach them about what freedom actually looks like? Not financially free, because that's a generic way of thinking about it. You can be financially free but be spiritually enslaved. You know that, right? The quote-unquote being financially free means you have money to and resources to connect with certain things, but there's still limitations. Even if you're a billionaire, there's still limitations because you can't act on your spiritual sense of living. You can't speak out on certain things, right? Especially if you're a Muslim, if you're aligned with something, you cannot speak on those certain things as long as your money is tied into it. So yes, you're financially free on paper, but are you spiritually free? Are you mentally free? Is your mindset still aligned with everything that they tell you? How does that make you free? How does that make you free? Would you rather be financially broke and spiritually free? Or would you rather be financially free but spiritually enslaved? Ask yourself that, right? Do you follow the rules that society tells you and you follow that? Because we all follow something. If you're not following a religion, then you're following the societal rules, right? They're all rules they have to follow. It's just, what are the best system that you need to follow in? That's the question you have to ask yourself. Again, these are questions you need to ask yourself. But then when you're asking these questions, these thoughts, and you stumble upon the process of alhamdulillah, now you know what you're doing, you're trying to fulfill your purpose, and you know how to get there and the path of that, then you stumble upon an obstacle of a door that says, wait your turn. Why are you not grateful for how you even got there? Saying alhamdulillah. Especially if you have a spiritual sense of getting there, knowing that there's a guidance that comes from Allah. Allah guided you to that door, for sure. But why are we not grateful enough to know that that's the door that puts you to a stop and it makes you reevaluate everything that you've done so far? Wait your turn. Even it doesn't matter how long it takes. Wait your turn. Allah is the one who provides. You're the one who needs to be in a position to be humble enough to wait to be provided for. Right? So these are things that I thought about, knowing about what perseverance looks like. But, a lot of us, again, it's in our nature to see other people winning while we're at this stage in our life knowing that the door is not opening for us. But then where's the humility that comes with the fact that you're in front of the door anyway? And where's the humility knowing that God has gifted you, putting you in that position of being in front of that door, but knowing that there's something behind it that could be better than our imagination, right? Be thoughtful of your process. Be mindful of your process. Appreciate every moment that you have, right? There's that get rich or die trying, but that mindset of get better or die trying is what it is, right? Getting better in all facets of your life, getting better from a spiritual, mental, financial sense, and knowing that in the process of it, even if you don't reach the full limit of it, that you die trying doing it. And as long as God is pleased with you and you're doing the right thing with the great intentions, waiting your turn is probably the least of something that you need to worry about, because that's just part of your story. And think about it. The longer you wait, the more it builds your character, more of a story it becomes, and the beauty of it that comes from that, right? The longer you wait, the more you start building that skill set, the more time you start investing in yourself, right? You launch a business, you launch a company, it's not going well. The first year, keep going at it. It's not going well the second year, keep going at it. If it fails, some people think, how many people talk about how much their business failed? Because it's a high percentage of first-time business owners failing the first time and losing all their money. But do you know how many people come out of that first-time business, being a first-time business owner, and then coming out the second, third time and having to say, I've learned so much. If I didn't fail the first time, I probably wouldn't have done better. You need to fail. It's a part of it. But you also need to wait, right? You need to be patient. Because if patience is not part of your process, then what is the point, right? Well, you don't control everything that comes with what you're doing. The only thing you can control is your effort and your time, and making sure you're delaying gratification and asking more questions than answers, and having fun doing it. Saying alhamdulillah that I'm even here, that my mind is even here, that I know what my limitations are. I know that I can't give up. Do you know how it's a God's gift to show that you can't give up, right? If you're at a certain point in your life and you're building something and you know you can't give up, you should be so thankful, because how many people around you have given up at the stage you're in, or even an earlier stage that you're in, right? Thinking about, talking about podcasting, statistically, it says by podcast 5 to 7, I'm not sure exactly what number it is, that most people just give up because they don't get the recognition or the numbers that comes in with it. So then where's your attention in your heart that you are building to do it, right? For me, it's wait your turn. And this is why I'm sharing this podcast episode with you guys, because it's a wait your turn process. Alhamdulillah, I'm waiting my turn. But I also want to tell everybody that's in the same position as I am to wait their turn too. So I'm going to end it here, guys. Thank you for listening. Obviously, alhamdulillah, we got into the 17th episode now. So I'm going to keep going. Doesn't matter what door we're knocking on. As long as God has us and God is guiding us, we should be thankful of it. See you guys in the next episode.